Malik Spellman, welcome back to Wild Moguls TV.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to come back and be amongst your very interesting and studious audience. So thanks for having me.
Oh man, they love you on the channel. Jheri Curl era had to be the most destructive black man that the planet has ever seen. Was it? They really enjoyed that. It was a lot of interaction, 800 something comments, and
That's interesting. I'd like to thank all your subscribers, new and old, present and future, and especially those who make the comments, like Lighter Man and the other dude, what's his name? The one said I put an ash on the floor, and a couple of other people that I will be mentioning throughout this interview. But in the meantime, in between time, what's cracking with you, Wild Mogul?
Oh man, I'm just looking at. We got a lot of questions. I'm not sure if we got into this, but did you ever explain about the guy that was in a cell that got put in a cell who raped his sister?
Wow. Once again, man, I didn't have any idea that you would remind me of these questions. But before I get started, I'd like to say Bismillah Rahman Rahim to Big Huey. Rest in peace, Big Hugh's son. Another tragic loss of a young black man here in America. Contrary to popular belief, those that think that we believe in our youngsters dying and going to prison, absolutely not. So, to all the mothers of murdered children and fathers, uh, I fully send my prayers, and those of the Wild Moguls send theirs as well. I'm gonna tell you, man, that story about the was interesting. When I was in old Folsom, there was a dude who R someone else's sister, and in the meantime, the guy used to go to the yard, and the dude used to take and bully him and check all his stuff, his packages, and go through his records and all that, take his food. So one day, it was his turn to rotate the yard, and dude went to the yard, and consequently, he went through the records of the bully and found out that this particular person R his sister. So he came back one day, and it was time to rotate. You know, when you share the cell, you go to the yard for 4 or 5 hours and the next man do it. Well, this day he went to the yard, but he came back during canteen. That's when you get your chance to use your prison EBT card. And consequently, he had a 30 something pound weight at the bottom. When you put the top ramen on the top, they just give it to us in like brown paper bags. And he went in there and he bashed dude's head so bad because dude was in his paperwork. He went through the paperwork and seen this the dude that R my sister and was bullying him. And when I tell you, dude's head was like flat like this because the cell that they had us in wasn't my cell. I always make record of that. It was right across from the MTA, the infirmary, the little small office where they take care of all the people that's been injured. And his arms was like this, and his head was like flat like that, man. Dude basically like beat his bees out of his body. You know what I mean? And that was one of the things. Then another time, I seen a situation. I won't name the location, but it was a police officer. Someone had R'd his daughter, and we were on our way to go to court, and I was like number one, and the guy that was, wait, I think I was number one because the police stood behind both of us. So, because they don't let you stand behind the police. So we stand behind both of them. So he tapped me and was like, you go back. So I just stepped back to the number two man going down the escalator. And then he got in front of me. And when I tell you I'd never seen nothing like this, man, he took, because the LA County Jail used to be wicked. I mean, wicked, 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 wicked. Especially that John Wayne floor. They got that picture of John Wayne. And he took his foot and kicked that man down the escalator, homie, and tumbled down all them little sharp wedges on there. And then he turned around and he looked at me. This brother, he was a brother, kind of young dude, fly. You can tell he was outside. You know what I mean? He turned around and he looked at me. And I was like, man, Monkey see nothing, monkey say nothing, monkey do nothing. I ain't see. He said, man, Spellman, that dude raped my daughter. I said, hey man, I ain't got nothing to do with that, man. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Real talk, man. That's why I tell these youngsters all the time, man. That men's central jail ain't no joke. I was in there with a dude, a white dude, that confessed to a murder that he was gonna get the death penalty in Texas that he didn't even do just to get out that men's central jail. That place, that's where they got that term, they have to pump you sunlight.
Hmm.
That's where that come from. I know dudes, man, that cop pleas to get to prison just to get out that county jail. Hmm.
Clock P just to get out the county jail.
Hmm.
Is that a lighter watch?
This is a Wild Moguls merchandise watch for Lighter Man. He gonna get the first one. Cause all your little subscribers had a lot of comments about my lighter game. So I went from to
You know what? I almost forgot, and you mentioned them. Um, we both had great relationships with Baby Huey. Um, I knew him separately from you, and you knew him separately, and we knew. And um, it's a very sad situation, man. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
well, my thoughts and my prayers go hand in hand because we lost another little brother named 80 Grand, I believe it was from, I believe he's from Main Street. Don't quote me on it. Coming out of another shop. So, I've been unfortunately in the business of trying to stop people from losing their lives, especially young people. And I didn't get a chance to meet 80 Grand. And if I did, I probably just seen him in passing. But I had a chance to meet Big Huey. And I've known him since he was a youngster with his dad running around. And he was a very respectful young man, and he's had his challenges as well. But, it's no different than coming up underneath Michael Jackson is your father, or Sugar Ray Leonard, or a Michael Jordan. You're in the midst of your father's world, regardless. And I'm not here to say, oh, Big U's world was all negative. I didn't know him like that. I didn't hang around. I've never seen him do anything negative, me personally. So for me to sit there and fabricate like, oh, you inherited your father's situation, that would be absolutely false and unfair. But for the most part, he was a very respectful young man, a Muslim little brother too. And he just had his challenges, man, and it's unfortunate for him, the other sisters and brothers that lost their children recently, as well as the people who are out allegedly committing these crimes against blacks. I'm quite sure they're somewhere feeling a certain kind of way too, because at the end of the day, what I'm starting to learn is there's really no simple solutions. Only intelligent choices. And until we stop really killing each other emotionally, spiritually, physically, and mentally, we're not going to see the bright side of who we really are. And when you see situations like this, the little brother will not die in vain because it'll bring some awareness to the community and other men in the community that can help stop this. So when you come into this type of work and you're dealing with a big UE or a big U or any other person that's from one of these tribes, one, you have to have thick skin. You have to work their program, and hopefully your program can get squeezed in the middle because they're consistent with what they do. And it's kind of hard for people, you can change, like they say, a wise man changed often, but a fool don't never change. So when you attempt to change, sometimes there's a fool that never change, and he's in the process of trying to change. So constant elevation causes expansion, true, but 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. So what you seen was a young man accepting that challenge to change in his own private life, according to what we know, with the football and his other brother employing ex-cons, and the legacy continues, man. So it's a tragedy all the way around, especially for poor people.
Yeah, it's in and with the people that's involved. I call me conspiracy theories, but you can't. It could also be a bigger hand involved, especially with that it happening in Halloween night. That just seems weird.
Well,
Screams setup. You know what I'm saying? To me.
there's always a hidden hand, but on the contrary, um, young man, they still looking for the Messiah. So anybody that can contribute to the the demise of our destruction in any shape, form, or fashion, minuscule or huge, is a threat to those who don't want global peace. Those who, like my boy told me the other day, he say, if you ever notice, it's all the little dick motherfuckers around the world that starting trouble. North Korea, China, Russia, couple over here. You have to have a bigger set of balls nowadays, man, in order to want global peace, because there's accountability for your actions while you're here. And when we see crimes like this take place, and I say it's not in vain, it's going to make a situation appear where someone's life will be saved because of this. Some chapter in our history will change because of this, because we'll know that this is not the route that we want to take.
Man, um, the pain that Big U is going through is unbearable. Because I'm a father, you're a father. It's unbearable what that man is going through. Besides his own case, you know.
Well, the Quran says that Allah never put a burden on a man that he don't have the strength to bear.
Yeah.
And Big U is Hannibal. That's his handle. And Hannibal was a strategist. And sometimes in this life, I've learned after 300 plus gang related funerals that oftentimes our ancestors leave so we can live. That's why you see the Hispanics always celebrating the dead.
Yeah, you got a point there. You got a real point there. Now, we was talking about the carjacking law got implemented because you said the senator of Sacramento got his Dayton stolen.
One thing about protecting history, especially with you young motherfuckers, I didn't say that. I said that a senator's son car was carjacked in the 80s, and they came out with that law carjacking. That's what I said.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got 2 ears to listen twice as much. And that's just how it is.
Did his car have Dayton's?
Um, yes, he did.
So there was a connection to Dayton.
Yes.
Okay. So I heard something right.
Everything's connected to Dayton. It's connected to Dayton's Old English or something of that nature. Those corporate people always seem to have their hands in this situation. They're the 10%ers. They suck the blood out of the 85%ers. And then we're the 5%ers, the poor righteous teachers who are trying to give some light and ease to people's lives. Because at the end of the day, Papa, honestly, you only get this one physical life here, and the next one is uncertain. And who has the right to take someone's life, to incarcerate people, or to even dictate to people? There should be one thing that we have in common, and that is that we're alive and human. So, for any group of people, regardless of political affiliation, religious affiliation, or just independent thinker, I believe that sovereignty is not something to just play with. I believe it should be acknowledged and that we should have a right to exist and coexist with others. I can remember a time when I was a kid. We used to jump off pissy mattresses off the roof. We would leave our mama house at 9 in the morning and come back before the sun go down. We would kiss the girls behind the building and play. They would play hopscotch and we would play robber and tough guy and pull the rope and build mini bikes. We drunk out of Miss Johnson's or Miss Rodriguez water fountain. Those people who are your viewers remember that. When you could take just a vitamin, when the summertime come, your mama give you a little castor oil or something like that from eating candy all year, or you can go trick-or-treating by yourself. Those days have to come back to replace this chaos and confusion because the internet robbed children of what's really going on outside of the fact of chaos and confusion. So when you get these type of situations and you reflect on what our lives was like growing up, chasing the ice cream truck, ride on the back of it, sneaking on the RTD, that RTD and that Jheri Curl,
Hmm.
they was cousins and relatives. That rough, tough, and dangerous, that RTD,
Yeah.
was a rolling institution of higher learning.
What was it called? It was Rapid Transit Department? Oh.
It was called Return to Death. A ride to death, RTD, because there was no guarantee you was going to make it because it was always somebody like you, Rodriguez Vato, and you, Pookie, was on the back of that RTD with them brownies on, with them lokes on, looking at everybody, sizing them up. You the only one sitting on the back of the bus like it's the civil rights movement.
Hmm.
You thought I forgot, huh, Pookie? Mhm. You'd be on that bus terrorizing. Then it got to the point where the chemicals from the Jheri Curl and all the chaos and artificial life that they offered us, the buses started getting shot up. So you couldn't even ride the school bus. You couldn't ride the RTD because every time we go through a certain neighborhood, it was getting popped on. So y'all live through an era after the truce, post-truce syndrome, which is good. But
Yeah.
we lived in an era in which you did not have the affordability or the luxury of visiting various. I mean, I did because I'm a non affiliate, probably the biggest one in the world. But on the contrary, when we used to go to parties in neighborhoods, we would look at the building to see how many bullet holes is in it. I still do that to this day as an intervention. Before I pull up, I just look and see how many bullet holes is in the front. And I can name some neighborhoods, and I won't because I don't want to cause any friction. But a lot of these neighborhoods got so many bullet holes in the front of the building. Just take a look. And those are some of the precautionary measures that one can take when visiting various communities to do whatever you intend to do. It's just good observation. It's called keeping your head on swivel.
Keep your head on the swivel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so, when we talk about Jheri Curl, was there like you never got a Jheri Curl, huh?
No, I came out of family planning.
So, was Jheri Curl like a brand of the curl, or it was just how that look was.
Well, depending on the region that you lived in, determine what they called it. I assume.
Okay.
In California, they called it Jheri Curls. Somewhere else, they may call it the S curls. Somewhere else, they may call it the, you know, the finger wave. I mean, there's different variations of styles, but the styles really depended on the culture back then. So if it was Black Power by the hour, people had afros. If it was, Slick Willie with the pimp game, they had perms. If it was Sarah Vaughan or one of them, they probably had finger waves and a bunch of other stuff. So I've read some of the comments from your subscribers who I love very dearly, and they all had a multitude of different reasons and seasons on how the hairstyles was originally worn and what reason they were worn for.
Okay. Okay. So what was my
Do you have a
Chris?
Fonto or grab a leaf by any chance?
Yes, I do. I wanted to talk about that that white envelope.
Hmm.
You were supposed to give me some of that too.
Yeah, that white envelope was quite interesting. I don't know if many people are aware of it, but it was the white envelope, I believe. And trust me, just for the record and for your audience, I'm of a certain demographic. And for me to retain and upload a lot of this information, it may not be accurate, figuratively speaking, but the intention is good. So if you can do further research and come up with a different perspective, I appreciate it. Just a couple of people was like, yo, he's wrong. Okay. But who's right in this world? No one, until we all get together and start having conversations that can allow us to collaborate. And in our collaboration, we'll come up with a simple solution to such a complex issue. But of course, again, that white envelope was something that was passed out, I believe, during Mr. George Bush Sr.'s funeral.
Yeah.
And not many people know what was in that envelope, but it'll let you know that there's spiritual wickedness in high places and things that we're not aware of. And if you look at the white envelope, for you guys that want to Google it, just look at the expressions on the faces of those who received it. And the only one that didn't receive one was Mr. Trump. Everyone else got one. So maybe it was an invitation to a party somewhere. You never know.
Think so?
I don't do a lot of thinking. I do more observing than anything. And then later on, I'll attempt to think to come up with some sort of analysis. But my analyses are always based on that of people like your subscribers who do their homework. I don't just go along just to get along.
Now you don't have to tell us what it was. I'm just asking. Have you had anybody that you know that's in that mix that try to tell you what was in that envelope? You don't have to disclose.
Well, it's- you know, I can't exactly say what was in there because I'm not a part of that group.
Hmm.
I know people who are part of that high level of thinking. But on the contrary, I assume that it was an indication that there's a new world order because that's what Mr. George Bush Sr. stood on. So I don't know what it was, man. All I know is just good education for people to take a look at it, and it'll give you an opportunity to see how things are done and the expressions. Because I read a lot of body language, and body language, my daddy was the type of man, he used to watch sports with the volume down. I used to be like, man, Dad, why you watch some sports with the volume down? He said, because the white man don't know what the hell he talking about. I was like, okay. All the sports announcers back then was white. So then he would read their body language. He's about to throw it to this one. Will Chamberlain's going to get this. Like one of the brothers that's in the business of sports said one day, he said they never show basketball players from the year 74 to 78.
Why?
It's a good question. I want to answer it, but I'll let you guys try to figure it out. I believe it was to not discourage some of these new basketball players, but I used to know the answer to that question, but we'll let your subscribers figure that out.
74 to 78.
Yeah. They wouldn't show them for some reason. To Kobe or none of them dudes. They wouldn't show their commercials. You never hear about Wilt Chamberlain's and Dr. J's and what's that other brother's name? Used to Daryl Dawkins and used to bust the
George Gervin.
George. Yeah, all them top dudes, man. The ones that really mastered the game. So for you and your subscribers, once again, I think that we should look into that.
We should look into that.
Yeah.
Now, you said Cuba's welfare system is controlled by Russia.
It's not control, but the money that comes to them, like the EBT that comes to people in America, that money is subsidized by Russia, which is a
So,
good thing.
so, so all this shutdown is connected. I just realized it's November. We got the November primaries. So all this is connected to that. They said the EBT is supposed to be done October 30th, but it should be back running by the 4th or Wednesday, I should say.
Cool. You know, as poor people, what we gonna do without our EBT and BET? That's all we got. So don't take that from. If you don't give us our EBT, how we gonna pay for our BET? Although EBT pays for food, but it just goes to show you that we need to get a new system in place that won't allow us to become slaves to our own money. I mean, how can the government have the audacity, or let me say it correctly, the audacity to dictate to us when we can eat and how we can eat when it's our money? You know my philosophy. How can you say you speak for us when you don't even speak to us? So for the government to sit there and them dudes is rich and wealthy and all the senators are wealthy off of $100,000 a year salaries, which is quite interesting because the math isn't mathing. They don't have the issues of healthcare and stuff like that. They have the Pelosi effect. They get the job done when it comes to investing and having people to tell you which stocks to buy and which ones not to buy and things of that nature. But for the most part, man, they got a lot of nerve, to spend our money. And I'm talking about all the money, man, from Commonwealth to super wealth. This is the people's money. And they talk to us like we're children, like you're not getting your allowance unless you clean up your room type thing. You know what I mean? This is our bread. And when do we ever see it? Like realistically, we don't need any more false promises of representation, taxation without representation, in the words of Malcolm X. We need some real results. Every kid should have college paid for in America. There should be no ghettos. China and America should link up and figure out how to do housing and things of that nature. Who wants war? And I'm not saying because I personify in some instances the image of a peacemaker. Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, what are you guys really doing it for? You have all the money and all the power, and it's coming from us. I look at the world like this sometime when I'm flying throughout the United States, and I fly over these cities. And when you look down at these cities and you see all these businesses and buildings and people, and you say to yourself, wow, how much taxes are they collecting from these people? And where's that money going? I don't get into politics because I don't believe in being tricky like that. I'm not into politics or technology. But at the end of the day, it's like, come on, man. Who, how can you just, for example, a bank freeze your assets, or child support freezes your assets, which is the number one destroyer of families, in my opinion. Not when it comes to applying child support to deadbeat fathers and things of that nature. But to me, the child support courts is the new relationship police. You contact them when something don't work out right, or the finances in your arrangement with your wife or your significant other is not and up to standards that you want. So that's just my take on that, man.
So, so do you think it's all game? It ain't gonna shut down. I mean, it's shut down now, technically. It's been shut down for 30 plus days, which is, I think, if it goes past Wednesday, it's a record for longest shutdown in government history. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's all good. Um, Judge Carlin, the girl, we had a great video about Latasha Harlins. People got on me for not remembering which case she was when I asked you who she was. I knew who Latasha Harlins was. I just forgot which situation she was a part of. I
I
just
bet you know
remember
who Sexy Red is. I
that.
bet you know who Nicki
Damn, that's
Minaj
cold.
is.
I get it. I
I
get
bet you know who Queen Latifah is. Hmm.
it. Yeah. But now let's get to Judge Carlin. This is the lady, this is the judge that gave the Korean lady probation. And it seems like she's done a lot of destructions for a lot of black girls in her career.
Well, I'm gonna be quite frank with you, hot dog. Let me stand to be corrected for the interview that we had concerning Mr. Johnny Cochran and his involvement in the Latasha Harlins case. First and foremost, I apologize for misstating something because once that weed kick in, and I try to recollect what happened, oftentimes the information gets in front of me and in front of the information that I'm trying to convey. So, what I was attempting to say was that Mr. Cochran, I believe, represented Latasha Harlins during her family's civil lawsuit. With the correction of your viewers, I stand to be corrected because that just reinforced what I was attempting to say. But I do accept all responsibility for misquoting something that was not correct because I know Mr. Cochran and some of the Harlan's family members. So, with that being said, thank you to your subscribers, and I appreciate your patience with me on that.
Your wrong ass.
Yep,
Uh,
that will come back to haunt you throughout this interview.
Can we um do you know any information about Judge Carlin?
From the best of my knowledge, she turned out to be a tyrant later on, sentencing young girls, black girls, and others, Hispanics and poor whites, to significant amounts of time and unnecessary judicial attention. And it showed that her ability to manage the courts in a way that would be fair to all was not correctly enforced by her. And I believe she was removed from the bench or something of that significance. But it just goes to show you, you never really can trust people. I mean, after all, the federal court building downtown Los Angeles used to be a slave trading post. Did you know that?
No.
That's why I just corrected your young ass. That's it. This is the history that we need to know because it allows you to know what the foundation of what their whole agenda is. And it's not a conversation again about, black power and we over here crying about what the white man did. We could give a rabbit's foot about that. We're just here talking about our experiences and trying to download it to the best of our ability. I'm over 60 plus, and I'm attempting to defeat genetics. So if I misquote something or say something that doesn't agree with the masses, it's not intentional. It's just a way of me saying, hey, help educate me so I can help educate others.
You were saying Daryl Gates was taking brothers' cars if they couldn't prove how they got it.
Back in that crack cocaine Jheri Curl era, huh? Mr. Daryl Gates was so envious of the success of people in the inner city, especially in South Central, where I'm from, by the way of New York, that they was literally confiscating people's cars if you couldn't prove that you got it through employment or some other means, because the drugs were so prevalent and they was balling so hard out here. So if you want to your viewers, you can Google that. But that was the agenda. I think it was called Operation Hammer at the time. And they based it on whatever frivolous excuses that they used, because back then law enforcement had no accountability. The only accountability they had was to the jailhouse and the prisons and the graveyard to make sure that they got their man or woman. Remember they came with the batarang in these communities, dude, with a big old long iron pole knocking babies' cribs down and Jesus Christ pictures off the wall.
Would you just say? Repeat that again.
During that Operation Hammer under Daryl Gates' regime, they used a thing called the battering ram, which it was like a tank, and you could hear it when they started. That's why they came out the song, the batter ram, doom, 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 because they were literally using it. And I forget the first person's house that they hit with that. I'm going to have to research that. But it's a known brother in the neighborhood whose house they hit. I believe it may have been in Compton, somewhere in the, not Compton, but South Central, because it was under Daryl Gates. But this thing had a long protruding device on the front, and it would come through the door and hit baby cribs, Jesus Christ pictures on the wall, high school pictures, and put a big hole. When they used to tear up your house back in the days, they would just tear it up and never repair it. They just come in, bust out all the windows, snatch the bars off the window. It was a lot of foolishness and shenanigans with the police back then because, like I said, there was no accountability. The accountability didn't start taking place until after Rodney King got whooped on. Then they
Right.
started having accountability because that one camera, and God bless that cameraman, I forget his name, that taped it out of his window that time, because without him, they'd have never got that opportunity to go to court and things of that nature.
Was it a Russian kid or something?
I have no idea what his nationality was, because he could have been a Vietnamese mixed with Alaskan. He did a great deed by catching them people. And I was on a show once before, Sally, Jesse, Raphael, or something, or one of these shows, in which they brought out Stacy Coon and myself for an interview on stage. Tony Bogart was there, Ty Stick from the Nickerson Gardens, a bunch of us. And they brought him out, and he came out. He said, "Oh," he said, "A wink." And he went to shake my hand. And I was like, "Shake my hand?" I was like, "Dude, I don't shake hands with oppressors." And I said, "Roll tape." And we got to talking. I still remember what I said. I said, Stacy Coon was out wilding with a bunch of LAPD officers. Do me a favor, don't cough on my interviews. I appreciate it, because my viewers don't appreciate that. If you can't control your marijuana, you should not cough, young man. Now,
Start from the beginning.
no, not starting. I'm going to continue with what I said. Stacy Coon was out wilding with a bunch of LAPD officers who were above the law, and something, 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 they beat Rodney King. And then at the end, because back then I was young, rambunctious, and braggadocious for the right reasons, I assume, in my mind. And I was like, "And may death get with you as soon as possible." And about a day or two later, somebody ran up in the halfway house where Stacy Coon was, the one who beat up Rodney King, and they started shooting, tried to kill him or something. Didn't have nothing to do with me, but that's just how the world works.
Now, what is some other crazy cold situation that was going down during the Daryl Gates era?
Who Daryl hates, because it was
Daryl
no,
hate
he's.
because Rodney King, that incident is what got him fired, right? That was the end of
I
his
don't know
era.
what happened to him. I know Rodney King. I know Daryl Hates' regime, along with Sherman Block from Wayside Prison out there, I believe near Magic Mountain in Santa Clarita, something, which was racist. They used to have a Confederate flag in the flower bed when you entered the jail out there, because it's like a farm dairy type thing. And they had that little Confederate flag out there. And those people are like, that's like a different part of the world. They run that like a real plantation. You can ask some of your old school subscribers about Wayside, the old men central jail downtown, where they used to walk you from court underground. There was no buses. They would walk you from the courtroom. Now you guys get video, not you, because of course you're a law abiding citizen, but they would walk a person from the courtroom underground on Temple Street up to that old county jail. So you'd never seen the streets. You'd walk through these tunnels. I remember once they took us through these tunnels to get us to court. And I was like, how many tunnels that we're not aware of that Los Angeles probably has? They walked us from that courtroom to that jail and we never seen the top, the daylight.
You know what? I got a conspiracy theory I want to ask you, right? Um, like 12 years ago, there used to be a bunch of YouTube videos talking about Walmart's, like brand new Walmart's closing and becoming like FEMA, like little FEMA stations, a bunch of FEMA camps per se. You know what I'm saying? Like it was brand new Walmart's. All of a sudden, it was just they would just be closed down, and there'll be a bunch of FEMA shit popping up, right? So like there was just this thing, and I recognized that Walmart was never a California market, but there was always a Walmart on Crenshaw up until recently. You know what I'm saying? For 20 years, the only Walmart in Los Angeles was on Crenshaw, and it had a police department, it had a police substation right there at the Walmart. And if you notice beforehand, now they're connecting a subline that's right there. But I believe that was part of a tunnel, you know what I'm saying? And they was probably shipping niggas out of that damn Walmart and that police substation.
Well,
What have you heard?
that's a good way to think theoretically speaking. It's good in theory, not in practice, but in theory,
Mhm.
it sounds absolutely amazing. It sounds like a sci-fi special. But they don't need a Walmart when they just come to unalive you. They don't need a Walmart. They just need body bags. I was once with one of my partners who's he's rest in peace now. Real, real street character, real, not mafioso, but crime family. And we was overlooking the little river. I don't know if it was a river, a lake, a body of water in San Pedro. And he's like, Malik, you see them bags right there? We're looking through the binoculars. And he pointed out all these body bags that was over at the port in San Pedro that was just stacked during COVID. So, you know, they could just starve you to death. They don't have to wait for you to come to Walmart or take you to Walmart and take you in some underground subway and transport you someplace. That's not how it go. Psychological warfare is what they use. And it's the same psychological warfare. If you ever took, like I was in state prison, which is a highly accredited university, hidden University of America. Some people are like, what prison, what school did you go to? I was like, Folsom State. Still a state prison. It's in California. It's one of the hidden universities of America. You realize that the prison industrial complex, which consists of people refurbishing buses, making Caltrans vests, working in bakeries, creating license plates, building police cars, it runs the gamut, I believe the word is, of the many things that are utilized once one is arrested and get 30 cents a month or $30 a month. So the object of it is not to incarcerate you in the sense that you're in some sort of camp, endearment camp, I believe it is, but it's to incarcerate your mind and to divide your household and your perspectives in such a way that there's no glue on earth that could ever put it back together unless you use God.
I don't want to say the celebrity name, but we had a conversation where you said, whenever you see these doctors doing a press conference on behalf of these celebrities that are passing out or whatever, or having these episodes, do the background check of the credentials of these doctors and what they specialize in. And it can give you an idea of maybe of what these people are going through. Can you remember that conversation we had?
That's a fact. As a journalist, self-taught, and this is not a narcissistic statement or moment, but it's an actual way of thinking that I applied to my own attempt to be successful in the news business. Was you when a doctor come out, for example, and they say such and such had a baby, right? Then we say, oh, congratulations, she had a baby. But they say, oh, well, the baby, we had to do a few moves to him because the baby didn't quite, come out like normal, but give it a few days. You have to really look at what type of doctor made that statement at the press conference. Was it a neurologist? Was it a psychologist? What was the purpose? So if you don't check the credentials of the person during the press conference, for example, you wouldn't take a motorcycle to a Mercedes or Ferrari dealer, but you would take a motorcycle to a motorcycle dealership. So when they do these press conferences, just for people who are listening, always look up what is the profession of that doctor that's talking about that celebrity. And oftentimes you'll see some of them are HIV doctor specialists or specialists. Some are lung specialists, neurologists, podiatrists. You never know. They may be dentists. So if you check the credentials of that person doing that press conference or speaking on their behalf, oftentimes, not always, but the majority of the time, that will tell you what's going on with that individual outside of what their publicist is telling you.
There was a senator that tried to pow you.
We're not going to talk about that right now. That's an exclusive interview. You got to pay for that, pimp. You strategically put that in there. Absolutely not. And I told you I won't talk about it, not under no circumstances, but we'll get to it one day. But you planted the seed. But, that's what podcasters do. You guys just want that thumbnail. Certain senator tried to something, something, something. All y'all need is a sprinkle. Then y'all are AI the rest.
Okay.
Just know that doing peace was not easy. That's all I could tell you. Doing peace was not easy. I've been poisoned before and, hospitalized. And we'll have that conversation again. And that goes along with the other character assassination attempts and other circumstances that you would not believe, trying to unite human beings, nevertheless your own. But good try, though. To try is to fail, but good try. Appreciate it.
Now, um, to talk about the truce again, I really want to talk about a lot of people don't know. A lot of people do know, but the truce was done from real people from the community, real. And when I say community, actually the gang community themselves, the gangs and people who are in the streets like yourself, who are real activists that weren't necessarily from nonprofit organizations. You were real individuals that were tied in to this, to what's really going on, and y'all really got a bunch of shot callers from these different gangs, which was not an easy thing to do. Keep in mind, Tony Bogard, I just interviewed Tony Bogard's brother, and I've got some insight from Mr. Malik and Dawood and his brother that, and Bogart had just got gunned down by an AK and survived, and it was allegedly by Jordan down Grape Streets that supposedly gunned him down. And for him to put his revenge aside and his ego and do it for the better of the community, that was a big deal. And there was multiple brothers in that in that predicament that you guys had to go get before the cameras seen it, before it was even a thing, to really make that resonate and make the different shot callers, was an extreme um, struggle. But aside from that, the question is, and what I want to get at is more or less the after effect and how the churches, the nonprofit pimps and all of this, because a lot of these brothers like you that were younger, a lot of the street brothers, now that they've orchestrated this, they wanted to try to take it to the next level. And they went to some of their elders, and then their elders basically used them and kicked them to the side and just worked and just pimped the whole situation and got away from the core message.
Well, that was like one of the biggest, minus the Jordan Downs comment with Tony Bogart. That was probably one of the biggest rhetorical questions I've ever heard in my life, because you pretty much interviewed yourself and answered a lot of the questions. I don't know whether to concur or to come up with my version of it, but I don't know who allegedly shot Tony Bogart with an AK. I wasn't there. I've never heard of a particular area that was responsible for that. Um, I know it happened, but I don't know who did it. The challenges that we had doing this, rightfully so, in some instances, like for example, when we went to First AME Church and we attempted to get in under Pastor Murray, and they locked the door and called the police on us. One, yeah, it was wrong, but then after 20 or 30-year history of just inner city destruction and murder and bullying our people spiritually, mentally, and physically, they had a right to lock the door. They didn't know what our agenda was. So I give them that much credit. I'll agree to disagree. But unfortunately, on their part, they were absolutely wrong, because the majority of the brothers that was with me that day trying to change their life and get some peace, they're probably dead or incarcerated now. And their children have been left to fend for themselves. So the challenges that we had were worthy of it. You know, there's an old saying my grandmother used to say. She used to say, Malik, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. But in this case, doing this work as a team with a community, it was worth it. Now, on the contrary, would I do it again? Absolutely. Because you learn today's answers from yesterday's mistakes. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. You know, one day we'll have an interview that'll separate my activism and go back to who I am and what I've been through. So when I'm on here trying to pipe to the public, like I said, there's no compensation for this outside of an agreement with the public to say, you know, I did my best. Because God only judges a man or woman by their intentions. He doesn't judge you by what you do. Because if he judged us by what we do, then none of us would pass the test. So your intentions is all you got, and your sincerities are your credentials. So when you're doing this type of work, you have a level of security clearance that's unprecedented in the world. Remember, the inner city, it's not called gang violence or gang members, it's called poverty. And poverty will send a man to desperate, you know, what they say, desperate times requires desperate needs or desperate moves of something of that nature. That's serious, because pressure makes the best diamond, so it could shed light in all directions. So as a result of that, we get the good rappers, we get soul food, and we're still happy under oppression. Now this oppression has niggerized our whole society. And again, they have a niggardly regard for all people now. It's either rich or you poor. California itself has 187 billionaires. That's why I like fraternizing with my people in Texas, because they real. You know, all the viewers that we got on there from these different states outside of LA, I really appreciate y'all, because we can identify with one another while we're piping this information coming off the West Coast.
Mhm. Now, did you get Um, did you get work by any organization when that was going on, where they saw that you was in the inside and you was doing things, and they basically try to play off of the whole situation and work and not give back to you, give back to
What do you
the
mean, like
people?
organizations that could have helped us out?
Could have helped you out.
It was so many.
I'm talking about act did press conference to the world as if they was a part of what y'all did.
I mean, they came from all over the world. Name a country and they came. Name a state and they were here. Back then, brothers were still in that mode where they didn't play cameras. When I was growing up, like now, you guys are in front of the camera all day before you even leave your house. Back when I was growing up, man, this how them G's would take their pictures like, looking at the sun or UFO or something. You didn't look into the camera. So bringing cameras in the community and stuff like that, they didn't trust that, rightfully, because those type of devices didn't. Those 1 minute sound bites, like Minister Farrakhan say, can destroy your whole life. So Jim Brown and all those brothers taught us how to deal with the media. And the media came because it was like the fifth wonder of the world to see black men who had participated in a level of violence that was architecturally put together by someone somewhere and then came to the conclusion that they needed something different. So that's why you see youngsters, they're able to wear red or hang out with a Crip or a Blood. And again, I don't like using that name gang, but I have to convey it to the public in a way that they understand.
Yeah.
Because you speak to the people in a language in which they understand. But those are either tribes or just poverty, man. How is it that we are 10 minutes away from, hypothetically speaking, Calabasas, and they don't have an overwhelming amount of people that are gang related? They're corporate gang related, law enforcement gang related. And the biggest misconception about black people in general is that we don't like the police. First of all, we believe that law enforcement is an intelligent component, and we're the least likely to utilize that. That's why they say snitches get stitches and things of that nature. Before in our world, before we call the police because you're in my yard trying to steal something, we'd rather fight you or pick up a stick or whatever you have to do. So law enforcement is an intelligent component. And I say this not in a joking way, but I say this to all the people who are in authoritative positions like law enforcement. First and foremost, I've never seen a person shot, killed, robbed, or home broke in that was a gangster, hoodster, mafioso, cartel, yakuza, Japanese. I've never seen a person on the ground in a bad situation bleeding and they didn't say call 911. When John Gotti got sick, who'd they call?
Police?
So for them to think that the people don't utilize them in such a way that's intelligent or may need them, or we have this one shot, one kill mentality about police officers and things of that nature, that's what leads you to believe that we're animals when you deal with us. And that's not the case. You know how happy people are oftentimes when they run into a nice cop? Or if you see a cop shooting basketball with kids or give a break to some little girl who just got her license and she's on her way to a pool party. Do you know that weighs a lot on your karma chart, Mr. Officer? Not this, oh, I'm stuck in my gorilla suit. It's 100 degrees outside and you got that gorilla suit on and you just being a tyrant. You're making it bad for the other ones who are really out trying to help people. So stop it. Stop trying to make the public your enemy in such a way that you believe that in your own mind. As you all say when you pull people over, I'm just doing my job. But do it with a lot of dignity and have a moral compass attached to your watch. Help you out. I got a lighter on mine.
Wow. You were saying brothers in jail in some angles don't. don't even speak English. They speak Swahili and sign language. And you said the Mexicans speak Aztec or sign language.
The brothers in jail, with all due respect, and I told you that because I wanted to convey to these youngsters who unfortunately will be visiting some of these places. And when you get in there, youngster, it's not a bunch of jumping around and throwing up your set and yelling out your hood and all that loud talk. When it's really going down, you can feel tension on the yard. You can cut it with a knife. Ask some of your subscribers. You don't hear any noise. They use sign language. And then most of the Mexican community, the people that are of Mexican descent, because I don't like to say Mexican like, that's the only race. There's Guatemalan people in there, there's Colombians, there's Puerto Ricans, there's Cubanos, there's Salvadorians. So just to apply everything to like the Mexicans this and the Mexican, no, man, it's just human beings. We
Mm.
didn't like it when they used to say the blacks having too many babies and the blacks got big lips and everybody wanted them. The blacks got big butts and everybody wanted them. The blacks got kinky hair and everybody wanted. We have to be real careful with our verbiage. And this is not a protection of one particular race, but even when people are describing black people, which is not a people, it's a condition, but just for the protection of anti bullcrap, we want to make sure that we apply these people in such a way that they get the dignity and the respect that they deserve. So on these yards, when you're dealing with a convict type situation, and there's a multitude of people from various places around the world, they don't do a lot of talking, youngster. You got to learn Swahilian. You got to learn that ancient Aztec language or some sign language. You're gonna learn something. More than anything, you're gonna drink plenty of water and walk slow. That's the first thing old timers and they're gonna tell you. I was in there with dudes that used to argue over who had the most time. Man, I got 400 years. Man, I got 90 years. Man, I got no. Willie had, cut it off, cut it off. I mean, literally, this God is my witness. I'm sitting there with my little time, like a tennis game. Like he got 400, he got 200. You been here 50. So when you get in there, youngster, and you piping, and you realize, man, I didn't graduate from high school. I ain't getting no P. My woman ain't gonna stay down with me because the only woman ever stayed down with you. Let me put it right. The only bitch that's gonna stay down with you when you in jail is the Statue of Liberty, and she cracking up. So she ain't gonna stay down that long. You're gonna start missing your family because the grandma and them gonna check out. Your sister gonna have a baby. Your girlfriend gonna have a baby by your homeboy. Handcuffs ain't even gonna be cold yet. They gonna be at your house. Collect call from Killer Mike. He gonna be right there laying on the side, handling the phone. Talk to him if he real. I've been there before. You dating some girl, her man in jail. You don't know he from in prison, the state university, hidden universities of America. But when you do know, it's like, nah, play it. You don't just not take his call. Answer that man's call. I just have to be quiet if you're a real one. Because you can't spend the rest of your life in PPP,
What's PPP?
the Pussy Protection Program.
Yeah.
Anytime you started letting the vagina, like my boy John Boy had a book that said The Power of the Vagina. That's real. Why do you think a lot of us go to jail or get into a fight at a bar or something because somebody said something slick in front of our girl, which we could have let go or stepped on our shoe, but because our machoism kick in and she's right there and she looking at you, what you gonna do, Buster? And you, wow, wow, wow. Before you get to the police station, she'll be with somebody else.
Yeah.
So be careful, youngsters. And remember, the life is the first thing that you're gonna see when you get there. You're gonna see old men with watches on. And you're going to say to yourself, why are these lifers that's been piping 40, 30 years? Why they got on watches? Because you ain't going nowhere. They're going to tell you drink plenty of water and walk slow.
Had a nice little intermission. Um, Getting back You had a conversation with Charleston White.
That was hilarious. You know, Mr. Texas C Dub is an interesting dude. I thought I was calling his manager. And if you're watching this, Mr. White, you taught me a lot. I appreciate you. So I called him like, yeah, I was trying to be on my best behavior because I know he's an intellectual giant and he be thinking. And I said, excuse me, my name is Malik, and I'm calling to see what it would cost or what it would take to get Mr. Charleston White to come on to Wild Moguls to perhaps talk about the LA gang culture and saving lives. Take that, Mr. Fireplace. You know what he told me?
What'd he say?
Real fast, too, because he talked fast. He said, goddamn, fuck LA gangs. And and the hell with the F with saving lives. I'm doing comedy. And I was still talking. He had been hung up. I think he had got on the jet or something. He was still talking. I was still talking. Hello? Mr. White. Hello? He said, FLA gangs, F saving lives. I'm doing comedy. So, Mr. White, if you ever decide to come help us poor black folks out here in Los Angeles, the ones you see all of us sleep in parks and we broke and all that. Holler at your brother, man, because I'm not going to disrespect you and play games with you. I want to extrapolate some real knowledge from you and have a conversation. Matter of fact, if you do come on, guess who I'm going to pretend to be that day? I'll make it fair for you. I'm the new Charleston Black of the West Coast. Mr. White, Charleston White, sit down and have a conversation with Mr. Black. I'll even put on my black jacket. Appreciate you, though, Mr. Charleston White. But thanks for accepting the call. Look forward to hearing from you one day up top.
You said the city of Los Angeles got sued for selling kids.
And the way I say that is because I don't want your viewers to say, we didn't find anything where they sold some kids. I know Walmart had a couple. No, they were taking children from Los Angeles juvenile halls or wherever they had them housed, and they were shipping them to other states in order to help rehabilitate them. And the overwhelming amount of kids that they had here, they needed bed space, and then they were doing experiments with their social scientists, I assume, in other states. So they sent some black and brown and poor white kids from Los Angeles to various states around the United States, and these kids here were a tad bit more rambunctious than any of the kids that some of the other social scientists in these institutions had ever seen. So imagine a 13-year-old from Los Angeles compared to a 13-year-old in South Dakota. That's a total contrast to one another, intellectually, experience wise, and in most instances, influence. So they pretty much, Cube had a lyric once, and I like Cube's music, and I wanted to send a shout out to Cube. Make sure you get this to him. Cube said, jumped off the plane. Folk gangbangers, professional crack slangers. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I understand Ice Cube because for a long time he carried the banner that Tupac inherited it in terms of personifying that strong black man that's trying to enlighten the masses because he had some bomb ass songs. See, y'all generation missed out on songs of meaning. No Vaseline and they did the song about the little dude that America KKK. Don't quote me on it like y'all did me with the spoonful of liquor and dive in with the Kendrick Lamar statement that I made. He made it. Did you hear the old? He didn't say a spoonful. He said a pool full of liquor. Thank you. I stand to be corrected once again, Mr. Commenter. Cube's records are interesting because he fought the power like Public Enemy. We had artists that made significant changes in the mindset of the people first, and then they went out and did the material version of it, like businesses or getting involved in a physical sense. But once I was in an interview with Cube, I believe I was working for Source magazine then. I've worked for a lot. I was probably one of the first people to interview Lil Boosie that was on the cover of Source magazine. Boots, holla at your boy, man. Throw me some weight, let me swim in the pool, catch a fish or two. Peacemaker. And I was in the office with Q, and it was a serious situation because I just got my house again, struggling new parent. And I just stood up in the middle of the thing and I was like, hey, Q, man, my rent due. And he looked at me. He didn't really know me like that, but he knew of me. You know, I've never really had a chance to interact. I know his brother used to work at the post office on Crenshaw, who was extremely funny. But I think his brother worked at the post office on Crenshaw or off of Adams, I believe it was. More than likely it was Adams. You would never know that was Q's brother because he never personified that image. He was just a kind individual. And then Q reached in his pocket, man, to give me some money, man. And it kind of blew me away because he was like younger back then, but I was really impressed with that. And I never forgot that kind gesture in my life. And I'm going to tell you another person that did me like that when I had my first child, Malika. It's a gambler from the community named Mr. Keno, rest in peace. And I'll ask my boy SO and Duck and B Rat from Inglewood family that know about these dudes. But one day I was riding down Crenshaw and I didn't know Mr. Keno like that either. And I was like, Mr. Keno, I put up on the side of him. I said, man, my rent is due. Now, mind you, Mr. Keno's the type of dude, you be gambling with him. I've heard stories of him gambling with brothers in the gambling shacks on them east sides. And then he would break them for their bread, break them for their car while they gambling. And then give them some money, put them back in the game, or give them back all their money and their car back. Mr. Keno. Mr. Keno was up there with Renee McGowan and, you know, them dudes, man, that was dudes that wouldn't allow the community to look the way it do now. And they kept their so-called, what we consider iniquities, they kept them on the other side of town. You know, when I was growing up, your mom would say, go to your room. You'd be peeking out the door watching your mama friends in there with a little bra and they be dancing nasty. That's what I used to do. I'd be peeking through the door. They be listening to Al Green and, you know, Marvin Gaye. And I'd be peeking through that door. You ain't supposed to. Then your cousins, y'all in there jumping on the bed. See, y'all missed all that. Then your mama them call you out the back after they done got high and drunk, and they tell you y'all come out here and sing like Michael Jackson. I can guarantee you your subscribers can tell you a million stories of their mom told me, yeah, Trevor, you and Willie, Javon, and Andre, y'all coming in. Let me see y'all do the whispers. Like when I was little, man, my mom used to have me dressed up, right? For Easter. Because my grandmother used to sew clothes. All the other kids look like kids, you know, with the nice little kid clothes on and stuff. My grandmama got me because she sold clothes. I'm looking like an adult, like a mob boss. I got on mob suits. You know, everybody else got on Easter Sunday clothes. I'm thinking I'm supposed to be in there with the adults. I got that three-piece on, you know what I'm saying? I'm,
Top hat.
damn near top hat, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to figure out, like, why these kids look like they on Sesame Street and I'm over here looking like I'm about to go do a deal in the Las Vegas casino. So it was different growing up, man. They would call you in the living room and make you sing, you know, Diana Ross. Not me, but you know, the girls and black women used to sit on the porch and braid each other hair with Royal Crown grease. You know, we got to talk about that Royal Crown grease again one day and that Murray's grease.
And that
You know,
Murray's.
that
Ooh.
Murray's was wicked, man. I mean, one time I had this young lady I wanted to go out with, right? And I said, man, I had the little waves. I said, man, I got to get my game right, man. I got to get my hair right. So I said, I'm gonna get me some Murray's. I wanted to lay it down flat, silky. So I took that Murray, you know that Murray's, you got to damn near
Ooh.
take it, put it in your hand and heat it up over the stove. But I did like this, I was like, pat. And you know, that's like crazy glue. You know, Murray's up there with Jheri Curls, that Murray's. And then you would put it on, I put it on like this, and it just stuck. You can't wash it out. You can't comb it, brush it, nothing. And I'm sitting there talking to this young lady thinking I'm cool, not even really knowing that I got this big patch of just Murray stuck right here. Then you had the other Royal Crown grease that when you go outside in the summer, your mama put it all on your hair. And then for some reason or another, she always managed to just put that grease on your face or have your face shine like baby oil and you looking like an Easter egg or something, or you in a Hollywood movie, The Shining. You know, things back then was different. Your mama take her thumb and before you go to school, she wipe your eyes with her spit on her thumb. You know, yeah, she smoked Marlboro. We had different things that made us love one another.
Yeah.
What they don't have today. For example, the girlfriend experience. A lot of people at home are having relationship issues, and I'm like, dude, why don't you try giving your wife the husband experience or the boyfriend experience? Like, what is that, Malik? When she come home, take her coat, give her a kiss, take her bags, have dinner ready, uh, maybe some roses going up the stairs. You know what I mean? Have her shower, her bathtub ready because she's tired. The house clean. That's the girlfriend. That's the boyfriend experience for females, for a
Mhm.
man. But now for a girl, meet your man and be equal with that. Because the worst thing and the hardest thing in the world to do, the worst thing to do in a relationship is to give up. And then the hardest thing to do in a relationship is to be poor and in love, or to be black and in love, because there's still a form of black unity, and black unity is the equivalent of an atomic bomb. I've been through relationships, I've had them, and they weren't all bad. It was a black experience, man. If I could have it my way, hey, man, I'd still be popping.
When you say atomic bomb, is that a good atomic bomb or a bad atomic bomb?
Well, black unity and the unification of people in general is the equivalent of an atomic bomb, metaphorically speaking, or a hydrogen bomb for that matter.
Now we was talking about a girl who got an organ from an evil gangbanger.
Dude, here, man. I tell you this much, man. You do your due diligence as a journalist, but some of the most interesting things that we've talked about in our pre production meeting, you seem to always want to jot down the most intense, horrifying situations that we could ever converse about. Now, what was the original question? Because this is a bit interesting.
Well, I wanted you to recall the time about this girl who got an organ donor.
Oh, sorry, I had to recollect. I was a journalist at the time for Fox 11 News, and I wanted to do a story on a young lady who had received a certain body part from an individual that was from a gang that passed away. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know the young man was a real, not a gang member, because anybody can be a gang member. Like anybody can be a member of the YMCA, or anybody can be a member of the police department. But are you on SWAT? Anybody can be in a gang, because the majority of people that live in these communities that they say are gang related, that's just geographically speaking. There's only a certain amount of people in there that are really putting in work. That's why they always in trouble.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the police department. You might be a LAPD, but are you that sniper on the SWAT force? So anybody could be a member. Like when I was doing the stuff with stopping the violence, I didn't really deal with gang members per se. I dealt with serial killers. Because once you got more than one murder, you become what?
A serial
A
killer.
serial killer. Whereas this young lady she was a good Christian girl, and the young man passed away and he donated his body parts. So I wanted to do a story on it. And I'm not laughing, no pun intended, but it kind of spooked me. I wanted to do a story on the fact that someone did a good deed and someone received something that allowed them to live. So I went to the family of the person who donated, the parents of the person who donated the kidney. And I went to the people that received, that were the recipients of the kidney and whatever it was, body part, I don't remember. And they agreed to do it, the people that was the recipient. So I went to the young man's parents, like, hey, your son did a noble thing in his death. He donated his body parts, yada, yada, yada. So his mom and his dad was like, Malik, we appreciate what you're doing in the community, but please don't associate us with our son. Don't tell us our name. We're not interested in doing an interview. Our son was evil. He was a serial gangbanger, da da da. And I know the person is. I'm like, whoa! Now I'm blown away. I'm trying to balance between thanking them and giving props, and then going back to tell the family that they're not interested in the interview. So long story longer, I went to talk to the other family members. Hey, the lady's not interested. She said thank you. She appreciates you guys. Enjoy your life. She didn't want anything to do with the story. And then the sister said, well, Malik, I want to tell you something. She looked around. You know, somebody gonna tell you something slick now. He said, ever since my sister got that body part donation, when she gets angry, she turns into someone totally different. I'm like, what do you mean? She says and she's a Christian girl. She says she just gets to curse. Basically, she turns into the gangbanger who donated her body parts. So I was like, what? She said, then she just goes back to normal. I said, that kind of transformation of energy is quite possible. But it was amazing how one party didn't want anything to do with it, a noble act like that. Then the other one was willing to talk about it, but the recipient of an exorcist style body part.
Unbelievable.
It was the craziest thing. And then another time, a friend of mine, he did the truce with us. He's now working with youth and probation. So he's like, Malik, man, I got this one white dude on my client list. And when I be having to go to his house, I ain't going over there no more. I said, why not, man? You know, you probation. He said, man, we be having to do home checks and check his room, make sure there no drugs and guns. He said, but when his mama let me in, she'd be like, he's in the back. I said, okay, go back there and do your thing. He said, nah, man, because last time I went back there, dude was sleeping stiff in a coffin with the devil music on with all the satanic shit. He's like, Malik, I'm not never going over there again in life, man. He said, man, he can just come to the office, man.
Damn.
That's a true story.
Unbelievable, boy. You got some crazy, crazy
These are
stories.
just life. I'm not making any of this up. I'm just trying to verbally and mentally regurgitate this information to take you on a ride with me to let you know what level of consciousness that one has to have in terms of mind power when you're attempting to serve the public.
Now, we talked about Don Cornelius, you know, you don't believe he killed himself. Is there any other people that's throughout the years, maybe before social media, um, that had deaths like weird deaths that you don't believe were what the news were?
Well, you know, the straw man deal is always real. And it's interesting how most black celebrities in particular always get hit from the waist down in terms of the crimes they're accused of or the downfall of their empires, always by the way of he touched me, he raped, he r'd me, he disrespected me. You know, it's always from the waist down, whereas corporate bosses that, for example, that do things on Wall Street or the things of that nature, they come from the waist up. So you have a perfect love and a perfect hate. And a perfect love is your God, your family, your community, your property, things of that nature. The perfect hate is incarceration, poverty, oppression, seeing people suffering. That's the perfect hate. So everything from the waist down is really where they hit us from. They don't hit us from the waist up where you went to prison because you ran off with 100 billion and government bonds. Everything with us is always a P. Diddy trap, you know, a Tiger Woods trap. And I wrote an article once called Tales of a Black Celebrity because I heard Tupac say that. That's why it's always good to study Tupac's word for word or sentence by sentence. He said Tales of a Black Celebrity. So I was like, Tales of a Black Celebrity. I said, I'm going to write an article in the Los Angeles Sentinel. I was a writer back then for them. I said, in Tales of Black Celebrity seems like it goes like this. What black celebrity you know has not been arrested or harassed? Name one. Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson, Mikey Tyson, Cicely Tyson, Prince, Snoop Dogg, Dr. J,
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart, Martin Luther King,
Malcolm X.
his wife, the beef people wanted to take down Oprah. I think Sade had a drunk driving. Uh, Unfortunately, the brother Bobby Brown lost his family. Jennifer Holly. See, Hollywood don't play family. I want you to remember that. Based on my observation, because I know someone's gonna say, "Oh, that's not true," because Brad and Angelino had a family. No, once you get into family, you're no longer important to Hollywood because they arrange marriages. I don't know if that makes sense. That's why you see successful people like Denzel and them, or even a Kevin Hart, some instances, or these dudes have wives, but they keep them private at home. Because once Hollywood realized that your time is going to be utilized for other purposes, you signed a contract, and there's some fine print in that contract. That's why they call it a contract.
I'm I'm not sure if it's real, but from what I hear, did you hear this? Denzel admitted that up until I think flight, that last flight, like a few years, like 2015 or so, or 2018, he was completely high in every fucking film role we seen him in. Like from like meth, crack, every drug.
You know what Denzel told me once before when they were doing the movie Training Day? And he said, Malik, I seen him at the gym. And no, I don't hang out with Denzel at the gym. He just was there. And I knew someone that trained him. No, Denzel and I are not friends. We didn't go pick up some females from the Jet Propulsion Lab and make them our girlfriends. No, we didn't do that. But Denzel said to me, said one day, he said, Malik, there's more feds in the gangs than there are gang members in the feds. I said, what?
Go ahead.
He said, Malik, Denzel Washington. I was talking to him one day at the gym, in front of the gym. We're kind of in and out. And he said, Malik, and he named one particular gang, but I'll just utilize both for the purpose of being fair. He said, there's more feds in the gangs than there are gang members in the gangs. I said, what? I had to hit him with my Westbrook face. What? That's exactly what he told me. So if y'all see him, ask him, did he say that to Malik?
Denzel sent that to you.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
During training day.
Were you in training day?
Mm-mm. I'm the reason they made training day based on our culture and our behavior. I had one. See, I'm about to get myself in deep trouble. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I had one situation where Tony Bogard and I, Ty Stick from the Nickerson Gardens, bunch of us, was doing a thing in the PJs on a truce. And back then, you had to keep the phone on. The phone bill was high on the mobile phone, and we couldn't keep the phone on because money was real low. And there was a young lady, I can't think of her name, but she was from the 30s, Harlem tribe, Harlem Crip tribe. And she used to low ride. And I believe in my heart, because I had a crush on her like no other dude. She was beautiful, but she used to low ride. So the moral of the story is we needed some food and supplies to do a little party in the projects. And she said that she would come through with the lowriders. Now, back then it wasn't an everyday occurrence that you see females hitting switches.
Mm-hmm.
So we waited in the projects, Tony Bogard and all of us. We looking like we waiting on the Pied Piper to hit the corner. Hours go by. She didn't show up. We couldn't call because the phone situation was bad. We had gave up. And out of nowhere, man, when I tell you she hit that corner like the Pied Piper with a bunch of low riders entering on, I think, 114th into the projects. They was hitting their switches. But as soon as we gave up, she hit the corner. But I believe that's the sister that they made the movie Set It Off behind. Because this sister allegedly was robbing banks. But I had a crush on her like no other. We kind of googly eyed at each other. I cannot think of her name. Of course, this is because I'm having a senior moment. But it was interesting because she came through, man, and she had food, weed, music, girls, lowriders from the 30s. And I can't think of her name, but I believe in my heart that that movie Set It Off with Queen Latifah and them was based off of her. I really do.
Huh.
Those that beg to differ, leave a comment in the comment section. But I truly believe that movie was behind her because she was, as they say, what they say, rob from the rich, take give to the poor, or something
Yeah,
like that.
Robin Hood.
Yeah, I call it wealth redistribution.
And now we had test tube baby commercials. Getting your tubes tied commercial, I mean.
Wow. Yeah, the lady's name, you can look her name up. I'm quite sure you've done your research, but back in the 90s, I believe in the late 80s or 90s, when you get old, you can tell when a person get old because they always say something like, about 2 weeks ago, I say about 2 weeks, about 3 weeks. They always got to go back to like, about a year ago, man, get to the point. They always got the retroactive stuff. Now it was about a week and a half, no, about 2 years, about 4 years ago. Look, dude, check this out. Back in the day, there was a lady who spent an astronomical amount of money putting up billboards and paying former or crackhead females that were of African American descent and otherwise to have their tubes tied or burned or whatever they do to these females to prevent them from having children. You can Google it. And she went on a campaign like an evangelist, no pun intended, and spread that word. And she was handing out $200. I could still see the billboards on Florence right now today. Was like, are you on crack? She didn't try to rehabilitate them. She just wanted to make it where they don't have any more crack babies.
Wow.
See, we grew up in an era where they had a thing called test tube babies, which probably have multiplied into the millions by now. You guys are not familiar with that when they used to take the babies. Now you have artificial insemination, things of that nature, which is more high tech. But on the contrary, back when we was coming up, they seemed like they tried to create like a Frankenstein of some sort, and it didn't quite work out for them. But I'd like to know, where are some of these test tube babies at today, and what have they turned into? What have they become?
I mean, there's a bunch of billionaires and multimillionaires that probably got hidden labs in their damn basement making all type of shit.
Well, that would be Epstein. People always say, Epstein was a sex offender, and that's true. But Epstein's biggest crimes against the Bahamas is what we need to talk about, when he was having all these subsidiary businesses that were laboratories doing unique things to children that wasn't perverted, but yet it was, as they would call it, advanced technology worthy.
So you saying he doing a lot more sinister stuff?
Mm. Look up the Bahamas versus Epstein. They're not suing him because he took no little bitty America's sweetheart over there, no girls. They got other things that they were doing. He was on some Bill Gates type stuff. Them dudes is into annihilations and agitations and
Now, what do you think him and Bill Gates relationship is? Because it seemed like he got divorced because of that whole connection.
I don't know what their relationship is because, in this today's world, two men can have variations of relationships.
Oh
So I don't
yeah,
know which one you're talking about.
I'm in business though, like
But
the
on the
dealing.
contrary, hey Bill, I know one thing. You sure let what's her name, Melinda?
Mm-hmm.
You sure let her loose with some bread. We can show Melinda, if you watching this, hey, holla at your boy Malik, man. We need the food stamps cut off. Man, you can do some things together down there in Six and Julius. Get a big old law firm, free to worthy captain. Melinda Gates.
Yo,
You want to get in the gates of heaven? Holla at your boy.
you know the Bill Gates' daughter. I mean, I think she broke up with him, but she had a brother
Well,
as a boyfriend.
that happens, but and I've seen a situation where Another individual that's on that status that I worked for at some point that wasn't black, their daughter had a baby by a brother. And they told him, take this check and leave or catch that bullet later on.
And what do you do?
He left the baby in her and took that check.
Damn.
That happens. You're not allowed to. I just told you Hollywood don't allow play family. It's bad for the brand. Why do you think they own Prince Harry? They not on him because of something that he did, because Prince Harry do it all. I think that's his name. He parties, smoke weed. I used to see him at the Four Seasons all the time with girls coming in and out. He liked them little Asian girls. I used to
Prince
see him
Harry?
at the Four Seasons.
Prince
Yep.
Harry like the Asians?
Yeah, Jack. Ain't nothing wrong with that. He come in with this. I never seen a security team like that because one of my partners was doing the something with their security team. I don't know what branch of the government it was, but every time they would show up at the Four Seasons because I was a reporter, he would call me like, Malik, we're in town. I'd go up there. They had their little SWAT looking truck with the running boards on the side with guns hanging out and people with wires hanging out their ear. And I was at the Four Seasons once and he was leaving. He was kissing some little Asian chick goodbye. She looked like she was heartbroken too, but I think that was a pay-per-view move.
And you were instrumental in bringing medical marijuana to California.
That's very true. I was one of the people that was involved with bringing Eddie Lepp, one of the biggest weed growers, Jack Herer, people that was from the Emerald Triangle down here to facilitate bringing medical marijuana and getting it on the ballot through one or two black politicians here that voted yes on it. And consequently, they got the medical marijuana here. And we created a thing called social equity in which there was no parity being shown to the community in regards to getting the licenses. When medical marijuana first started, I used to send people downtown to get a license for distribution for $200. At first, it was free. Then it was $200. Now it's an astronomical amount of money. Then we created a thing called social equity because the lady that was running the marijuana situation, I forget her name. I wish I could remember, but she pretty much sold us out and gave everything to MedMen and all these Kush marks and all these big franchises and stuff. And it starved out the social equity people because once we started getting action and getting the social equity licenses, then the rent started going up on the facilities. The rules started going up. You couldn't be near this place. You couldn't have places congested. A lot of people wasted a lot of time and money waiting on the social equity license to be distributed to them only to get a tax bill later. I'm one of them. So that social equity thing was a joke. That was a farce. It was some BS. They never showed us no love. Everybody that's got that, the most that they probably gave us was like a delivery license. Then you had to have brick and mortar and fire extinguishers. By the time you add up all the money that you had to spend to get a dispensary, they did that on purpose. So that lady, I forget her name, Cat Packer or something like that. She's like the worst. And I hope you watching this. You rob poor people with social equity. You and your whole crew downtown. Herb Wesson tried and y'all knocked him out the box. But y'all stole that generational wealth from us with a smile on your face. That's why you see all the stores that standing now are big stores that can afford to stand. And what's killing them because karma got on a pair of Nikes. It's gonna catch up with you. What's killing them now is that the underground weed market eating them alive. So they paying high taxes while Pookie out front selling 14 for the 50. That's what you
14.
get. Yeah.
Boogie selling 14 for the
That's why
50.
we got so many like little renegade shops around town because people can't afford to go in there and get marijuana that is rightfully for people of color. Because to me, weed is a black man's Prozac.
Yeah, that part. You was you was telling us that in jail, if you get an unexpected magazine or note and candy, push it back.
Yeah, that's another education. I want the youngsters that's trying to get into the Hidden University of America with a 4.0. And when I was going to the Hidden University of America, which they call prisons, which in my opinion stands for the prize son, because most of us are the black sheeps or the breadwinners, and we normally go to prison. And it's not a rite of passage. I don't suggest it to anyone. But if they kick a note underneath your door and you read it, you're in. Somebody kick a candy bar underneath your door, youngster, you might become somebody's bitch. See, when you get to jail, it's going to be bigger than your little gang street. It's going to be some subsidiaries. You guys are going to be looked at like subsidiaries, the small corporations under a big corporation or just another corporation. But there's some fractions and some rules and regulations when you hit that yard and come back that you're going to realize they didn't tell you on the streets from your one little street local gang, because you're in there dealing with people who have structure. And they're not going to allow you to come in as a rambunctious, braggadocious youth and disturb the program, because that's where the term "no one's bigger than the program," that's where it comes in full effect. Prison is the most segregated place on earth, and that place determines a lot what's going on in the streets and in politics, figuratively, because it's segregated. There's a black water fountain, a white water fountain, or maybe a Hispanic water fountain, a other water fountain. There's a black phone, a Hispanic phone, a other phone. There's a black chow hall, a Spanish chow hall. It runs the whole race's route that indoctrinates you so much that when you get out, you're like, I'm just part of a small faction of people with one particular ideology and perspective. You don't know that. The politics that's in the prisons, and I'm not a prison historian. I'm not a person that was into recidivism. I went one time, and it's been 40 plus years since God has blessed me to be on these streets without barely a traffic ticket, if that. Because I'm not going to be your caged animal. I didn't like that. I hated every second of that place. When you doing time in them penitentiaries, it ain't like TV. You kill a man, boom, in a cowboy movie, you out and by the next commercial. Absolutely not. They got the bell that ring for showers, the bell that ring for child, the bell that rings for the fights, the bell that ring for a murder, the bell that ring for a visit. So you doing everything is fragmented. You doing time in sections. You think you just gonna pop in and pop out. That's why a lot of youngsters in there is dying of a purple heart. You know what that is? When you done went there and realized, like I told you earlier, you ain't get your diploma, you piped in, you got 40 to life, you ain't going home, your girl ain't answering the phone no more, your mama can't get there. Then you realize I ain't made no kids, I ain't bought no house, I could have went to the service. And then them fools on the streets ain't effing with me no more. And my girl pregnant by another fool, and my sister out there tripping, or my nephew graduating. Then you get depressed. So you try to sleep off your time because you think you bigger than the program. So you trying to sleep it off, thinking that you're going to wake up back on the streets. I've been there, so I'm speaking from experience. But a lot of youngsters starting to cut their biceps and their private parts, man. And it's called dying of a purple heart. So it gets a little depressing in there. And these admonishments is really to try to, not spook you, but this is not an indictment, as I always say. This is an enlightenment. Don't go there, youngster. You rather do 4 years in college than 4 years in the penitentiary. It's the same 4 years. You rather sell a $20 bag of weed than to sell a $20 bag of meth and get life. It's the same $20. You rather work at McDonald's or Burger King or Northrop or the shipping yard on the streets and get a pension and dental and all that retirement, or it can be free instead of going in there like I was, like a fool, and getting $33 a month after you making your oppressive millions of dollars. When I was in Old Folsom, this white dude, he was my superhero. We worked on a thing called China Hill. They don't tell you you have hard labor when you go to California prisons, but they work your ass like you do. And we was on China Hill. And my job was to take the big boulder rocks up the hill in a wheelbarrow and to bring them back down the hill. And this is white boys to work with. We was on our way to work one day. I think he got there before us. Anyhow, his friend broke into Old Folsom, through the American River, through a little tunnel on the side of the prison when I was there. He broke in and then broke his homie out of prison, jailbreaked his homeboy, and they left and left a little dope. So we was going to work that day. And they was like, no, lockdown, lockdown. True story. This dude broke into Old Folsom when I was there. A white dude. That's why I give respect to them Aryan dudes. They're a different kind of animal. You know, a lot of them white dudes we was in there with, they had crosses. They had crosses on and SWAT stickers, and some of them had black people hanging from trees tattooed on their back, coming from Susanville and all them different places. But racism in there, you just know who you are. But I've met a lot of Aryans that I done got a suit from or fixed the radio because we had one thing in common that was we was human. I know a lot of Serenos that was in there, man, that when I left, they gave me a standing ovation. And I don't like to sound self-absorbed, but this is just what happened. Because they respect something that we had in common, homie. We was all oppressed by the police, and we all stuck up in that spot.
Wow.
One thing the police and convicts got in common is really two things, but you can say three. One is if you get to them penitentiaries and you in there for them kids, you would think police and convicts was in the same gang because they gonna tear your ass up. They don't play that. Keep your hands, offenders, off them children because your tour of duty in that penitentiary gonna consist of you getting a gas face. You know what the gas face is?
Nope.
When somebody takes some piss, urine, and whatever other substance they can get, and they mostly use it on the prison guards and throw it in your face as you walk by. It's called the gas face. They had a song back in the days, a rap song called Gas Face. Or they spit a dart through a thing with piss soaked in piss and shit, pop you in your neck. That joint ain't no joke. It ain't like you youngsters think you see in the movies. This ain't none of that. You coming in on swole, you shocking fools out and the homies got you. Absolutely not. You might not even see none of your homies
Damn, like that.
like that.
Can you tell us another Ike Turner story?
Well, Ike, as I studied Ike while we were in there, Ike was the type of man that you could bend him, but you couldn't break him. He was like a palm tree. You know, a palm tree blowing the wind and be bending, but it never break.
Yeah.
That's how black people are and oppressed people. You can bend them, but you can't break them. And Ike used to be underneath there, in there under whatever charges it was, probably domestic violence, but he would never wear it on his face. He would never be in there sweating. I got to get back to the streets. He was like, what more can y'all do to me?
Yeah.
Like, I'm Ike Turner, bitch. I'm Rick James, bitch. Remember, Rick James was an old Folsom. But Ike ran around there like, he wasn't trying to be no celebrity, none of that. He was just like I've been done wrong in the big scheme of things. You know, Tina, I respect you because I don't get in your relationship. I don't know y'all like that. But you should have stayed down with Ike. Because I heard that it take two to tango. And it's two sides of every coin.
Yeah.
So we never heard the real stories that I know. Not that we give a damn.
You heard Joe Brown's side? Because he says he knew them both and he's got an incident where Tina Turner shot at him and he said Tina Turner was mean, ornery. She used to slap and beat up on Ike, and Ike was one of them niggas like I gotta leave. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know, like they songs say, "Big will keep on burning." You know, he was smoking that weed and and effing and fighting. And I mean, that that type of environment and having a wife that's up there and you really the star and she's an up and coming star, whatever the situation is, it goes back to our original conversation. The energy or synergy of Hollywood don't allow family. All the way back to Ike Turner. They don't even allow, they had to break up the Jackson Five. DeBarge, the Temptations, David Ruffin and all them dudes. Them was some bad boys, man.
Yeah, David Ruffin had to leave the group.
And then to one of your subscribers made a little slick comments. He looked like James Baldwin. I heard that. What else he said about me? They had another little slick comment they made, but I'll be reading all your little slick comments, man. But I'm gonna take your girl one day. Watch.
Now you said Rick James was in old Folsom. Was he in Folsom with you?
No, sir.
He wasn't.
No, sir. I don't tell no lies. I believe Charles Manson. I'm not sure, but I believe he may have just been there, or may have left, but I've never seen him.
But now, do you got any Rick James stories of just being out in the streets of LA? Because I know he lived out here. Have you partied or been in studio sessions or been?
No, but my homeboy, last but not least, my homeboy was from Gardena. And yeah, it was light skinned, had a little beard, long hair, light skinned gangbanger type dude, squabble up, two family household type dude. We in the county. I think we was in the county. He was in the county. And he was working somewhere and he was like, yo, Malik, man, uh, I seen Richard Ramirez. That's what you did? Man.
Yeah. The Night Stalker.
The Night Stalker. I was like, yeah, because I thought I seen him once. Because, when you in there, they got a private elevator that they bring you on. And they be yelling, dead man walking. They have a big ass, like, Croker sack bag with a handcuff on there or some kind of little device to lock it on. And be 100 police walking through them sheriffs. If you can go through that county jail and just go in there and see the characters that's in there and the cases that some of them people got, it would be a horror movie, man.
Huh.
They're not getting sued now by the attorney general of that place for nothing. That men's central jail. They got some characters in there, brother. That's got up in that 1750 high power. I worked in high power, and they had a lady who lived in the Hollywood Hills. I was a trustee up there, and it was like the hospital part of the county jail. We had a red wristband and all that. And there was a lady up there, white lady, that I assume they said she was wealthy and her husband passed or whatever. But they said she used to go down to the Hollywood Strip in the 80s, pick up, little blonde, little dudes, whatever type she liked, take them up the hill, and then have SEX with them. And while they on TOP, she would hit them with the ice peas on the side of their body. Poof. So they had me cleaning up the little room she was in. They had her in a 4-point restraint on the floor, like low to the ground, like this. And I had to go in there and clean up. And I was shocked that they had women in the men's central jail. She looked like the exorcist, dude. Like her face, her lips was like chapped, and her eyes looked like her hair was matted. They had her down like this, like it scared the sugar honey iced tea out of me. And she was like this, and then she did me like this, like come in. She kept saying something. Her mouth was like this, split lips and whatnot. So I'm mopping, but I'm still young. I'm trying to see if because this is women in this, but she was straight up going. So the police told me what she was in there for. So that night I came back to go to work. And the police used to always say, whatever you do, Spellman, never go to the rooms without one of us there. And they got these little flaps like this that you open up and you can look in, right? They do the little check on them, make sure they don't hurt themselves. So wasn't no police around here. I go with my slicker ass. Now, mind you, this is on the hospital floor. I'm the only person up. I'm surprised I ain't seeing ghosts and some more stuff because it's quiet and it's clean. The floors is immaculate. That's all inmates do is clean up all day. So the floors look like Taj Mahal or something. And I'm looking through the flap. I mess around because I'm trying to see it again. And I looked in it and I seen it. As soon as I opened that thing right there, I don't know where this big burly ass 19-foot tall white man came, man. The sheriff deputy, shut that thing. Get out of there. You're fired. Dude, he came out of nowhere. But I looked in there though. But that woman scared the shit out of me. She was at a 4-point restraint on the ground. They talking about she was the ice pick something. You get on top and she stick you. And I said, ooh, I got to get up out of here, man. I said, man, crime don't pay, man. I need to get me a job at Burger King.
Damn.
Yeah, man. I was in there with another dude who was there. He was a nurse, square Starbuck looking fool by today's standards. That fool was in there for killing elderly people in the hospitals, and they gave him like 19 life sentences, some old crazy. I'm like, dude, crazy.
19 life sentence?
Probably more than that. And he used to be like, Malik, do you think I'm gonna get out? He was square, dude. Like right now, you could have dropped him off at Starbucks. He's like, where am I? I'm like, I'm really at home now. Like a real white dude, man, educated, but he was vicious. That dude
Wow.
was literally in there. You probably can Google it for killing senior citizens and old folks' homes and stuff. I don't know if he was suffocating them or what. But these are the type of people that you will be forced to sleep with in there. Then when you first come into that county, they used to make you bend over, spray that bug spray on your ass. They got this spray they have in a pump, and they used to oil you up because all the people come in and got lice and all that. Then they throw your ass in that shower, youngster. You're gonna be mad when you have to give up them Louis Vuitton shoes up in there. And they throw you in that shower, and the scum in there be like this thick because you in there with bums and homeless people and winos. But they want you to take a shower in that cold ass water, mandatory. The scum be up to your ankles. Me, I gotta get something else to do. I'm just really trying to lace your Converse, man. Young blood, listen to me, man. Young cud, listen to me on the live homies, nigga. Not on the dead homies, on the live homies. Listen to me. You don't want no parts of that, man. Man, you got homeless dudes, they just throw it. Then they make you bend over and cough, spread your butt cheeks, look up your rectum, open your mouth like a bitch, look all down your throat like you Linda Lovelace or something. It's heavy, man.
Yeah.
Then they throw you up in that room. I seen them had a Spanish dude once on the 9,000 floor. I believe they had a picture of John Wayne. I don't know if it's still there. I hope it ain't. Because that's their superhero. And the Spanish brother, the border brother, had some fruit in his pocket. He was leaving the chow hall. And the big burly racist ass white police, because that's what those are, the ones that are racist. That's you. We're not trying to size out white people because you want to generalize, think we're generalizing everyone. And he squeezed the fruit in the man's pocket, some apples. He made him go stand near the John Wayne picture. Evil bastard. I wish I could have did something to help that little brother. He was an old dude too. He made the dude all the apples that they collect from other inmates. He made the dude stand there with an apple on his head, right? Made him have an apple in his hands like an Egyptian sphinx, and they was down there throwing the apples towards this way and stuff, and telling him he better not drop none of them. Yeah. And then they would beat you to death for looking at the John Wayne picture on the wall. They call it eye fucking, the John Wayne picture. That's what they call it. And then why you eye fucking it? And they would beat, excuse me, people for using the F word. Please try to bleep that out because I don't want people to think that that's the only language that I use. But that's the reality of that, man.
Man. Um, is there any is there anything else you want to say? I think we covered a lot of topics. I want to give another sincere rest in peace to baby Huey, Jabari Henley, my dear brother.
Yeah, surely we come from God and Allah and Jesus Christ, and surely we all shall return, man. You know, a man don't become a man until he's at least reached 50 something years old. You know, your little penis don't determine how much man you are. Your growth and development don't start kicking in until you like 50 something. Take it from me. Like I tell you all the time, my childhood took the escalator, but my adulthood took the stairs.
Yeah,
That's the reality. Be patient with these young people today, man. It's difficult, man. You know, I'm not making excuses for gangs. I'm not glorifying it. I put all disclaimers up. This does not reflect that opinion of Wild Moguls and its sponsors. But on the contrary, this is our culture and we must address all the issues pertaining to our culture. We got to look at how many people have having, uh, well, I'll save that for another subject because that's personal and I don't want to offend the ladies. But thanks for listening. This is another Wild Moguls moment. God bless you, Big Huey, and the Henley family and all other families affected by this thing called poverty. But this is all under the Jheri Curl Act, 1980 something. And this is a manifestation of our actions and the development of new culture. Because again, black people and poor people are like palm trees. You can bend this, but you can't break us. Lighter man, I see you, baby. Peace.